Well, hello there. I just want to talk to you today about cascade events. Now, on board ship, you quite often have what they call these cascade events. That's where something stupid, something that's gone and been done without any thought or consideration to what the results might be. So, if you're in a complex environment like a ship, it's very, very important that you realise what you're doing. Now, often when I used to talk to the crew and the other junior officers and the cadets and stuff, I always say it's always best to stop and think, to say, what am I doing? Than 5 minutes later saying, what the hell have I done? Now, one particular scenario was on this container ship, this deep sea. So you're all on your own. There's no way of getting help, not for several days anyway, at least. So you don't want to have these cascade events. Anyway, one particular day, I was walking through the control room. It was about 5 minutes to 12, and normally the duty engineer would be out getting his noon figures, so that it was ready for noon and taking over. The other guy would come on at 12 o'clock, and he would stay on until 4 p.m. or 4 a.m., depending on what time of day it was. Anyway, this was 12 noon. I walked through the control room, and I noticed that we had no water pressure. We had no water in the hot well. This is a tank that you collect the condensed steam from the boiler and you pump it back into the boiler. So it's like a recirc system. And we had no water in the boiler. As you probably are aware, some of the ships that I've sailed on have had waste heat recovery system. This is where they fire the exhaust up through a series of tubes, and that heats the water to a point where it actually boils or will produce 8 bar steam. That's 8 atmospheres of steam. That's quite high, and it's pretty damn hot too. Anyway, on this particular day, the duty engineer had decided that he was going to change over fresh water tanks. Well, you think to yourself, well, that's normal standard practice, change over fresh water tanks. What he had done was he changed over fresh water tanks to a tank that had nothing in it. It was empty. It was bone dry, nothing in it. Now, I don't know why he did that. Anyway, that's beside the point. So as he changed over to this fresh water tank, the freshwater pumps that pump water into what they call a new press tank. This is a tank with half of it is filled with air that's compressed, so that the pump's not constantly running. You allow a up and down level, so that the pump doesn't run too long, but you still got water pressure. Anyway, so the water tank was empty, completely empty. Now this then meant that there was no water in it for the accommodation, taps and galley and things like that. Everything was gone, and the water pump that supplied water to the hot well was also run dry. There was no water in that either, and the hot well was empty. Now the boiler feed pumps, they were also running dry, and the boiler was empty. Now if you have no water in the boiler, that means you can't pump water through these waste heat recovery units. And if you allow the waste heat recovery units to get too hot, the carbon inside catches fire. Yeah. Right. So you then got a soot fire inside your waste heat recovery unit. Now, soot can burn at incredibly high temperatures, high enough to melt the steel and start to burn the steel. Once you get into this metal fire scenario, there's really not a lot you can do to put it out, because if you put water on burning metal, it quite often flashes off back into oxygen and hydrogen and then recombusts. So you're actually putting water onto a metal fire can absolutely make it worse. So getting back to what we had to do to fix this situation was, as I was in the control room and I checked everything, I ran like I've never run so fast in my entire life. I went to find out why there was no water in the new press tanks, and then went to find out why there was no water in the hot well, and then I went up to the boiler to see if the boiler was a genuine alarm, and it was. I ran back. I've never run so fast. Anyway, I came back down to the control room, called the bridge, and says that we need to stop, and we need to stop now. Make sure the ship is in a safe, it's not on a collision course with anything. Just we need to bring the sticks back and stop the main engine before we have thermal runaway in the boiler. So we did that. We brought it to a stop, and obviously that means that there's no waste heat going up, and so that saved the day there. And then it was a matter of going back down to the steering gear, was where the fresh water tanks were, either side of the steering gear. Anyway, so I had to change over tanks to the full tank, and then start to bleed through the system. I got back to the fresh water pumps in the engine room and bled through those until we started pumping water back into the new press tank. We then had to get a level in the new press tank and then restore the water pressure by putting air back in. Then it was a matter of bleeding through the new press water pumps so that we could then refill the hot well, and then it was a matter of bleeding through the boiler feed pumps so that we had water to go back up to the boiler. Once we established the water level in the boiler, we could then restart the main engine, and off we went again. So this took roughly about 45 minutes to fix this guy's one mistake. Now, in his defence, he was a submariner. He was in his late 50s, and as you know, what it's like in the Royal Navy as a submariner, you have people over your shoulder 24/7 telling you what to do. They tell you what to do, and you look at them and say yes, and then they watch you do it. But in the Merchant Navy, you don't have anyone like that. It's you. You are the person telling you what to do, and you've got to decide what you've got to do. Anyway, so that was a big learning curve for Eric, was his name. I mean, this story, he was in his late 50s when I saw him, so he'll be well and truly retired by now. But yeah, he was a bit of a loose cannon rolling around on the deck. Really, he didn't really know what to do. He wanted someone to tell him what to do, and someone watching him do it. But anyway, we sorted it out. 45 minutes later, we were off on our way. And of course, I'd missed my lunch, hadn't I? So I wasn't impressed. So I managed to go up and grab a sandwich and come back down. And then the chief engineer came down and the first engineer came down, and they all said, what happened? Well, I said, well, we almost had an economiser fire, which was, anyway. So that's it then. So when you're working, just take 2 seconds to say, what the hell am I doing? Then to come at the end and say, oh my God, what the hell have I done? Okay, see you then. Bye.